So we pastor a church in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, which is, as Maya said, in Southeast Asia, sort of squished in between Vietnam and Thailand. And we've been there for almost 8 years. It's definitely had its ups and downs, but we are still there, which is what I always say, if you don't quit, you win. So anyway, we're there. Hey, a few years ago, we had some family photos taken, right? Some friends of ours, she's a photographer, so we'll do a photo swap, right? I'll take some pictures of your family, you take some pictures of our family. It was fun. And so we were down at this river area in Phnom Penh. If you've ever been there, it's kind of the main touristy spot and the only place that has grass. So it's nice. And it was going well. We were taking pictures. We were hanging out. And then Aya was just running around and she fell over and she fell hard, right? Like not just, I tripped a little bit, but like she face planted, she cut her lip. She was distraught, and she's, crying and screaming, and she runs over to me and runs into my arms like it was the end of the world, right? Because she was 3, at the time, and for a 3-year-old, that is the end of the world, right? You fall over and you just want your dad, you just want your mom, you don't know what to do. You think everything is over and it's all done, right? Can anybody relate to this as an adult who's survived COVID? Yes, okay, good. So we are here, we're all here together. That moment where you think it is all over, right? I can't do anymore. I don't know what's going on. I'm broken. I'm sorrowful. I'm fearful. I don't know what's next. I feel like it's finished. I feel like it's done, right? The last few years for us in Cambodia, we've definitely had more than moments. What's like a longer period than moments, but not all the time, of that, where you just think, what is going on, What's happening? A month, yeah, several months, years. All right, not a decade yet. Yeah, okay. Seasons. That's the good church word for it. Seasons. Where we were like everybody, online church for 2 years. My nan was watching faithfully. I think that was about it. No, mum and dad. All of those young Cambodians we were really connecting with, and we've all been there, right? Noah was born in Phnom Penh in Cambodia in the middle of a lockdown. We had to get special letters from the hospital and the local offices to let us go through the roadblocks to take him to hospital. We're trying to figure out, what are we going to do if we have a baby in our apartment? I'm definitely not qualified for that. I went to uni for graphic design, not midwifery. And then, all of that sort of stuff is going on, right? And you're like, God, what is going on? I feel like it's all over. I want to bring us to a story in the Bible because that's what we usually do when we preach. It's a good thing. You didn't just come here to hear me rabbit on. So if you've got a Bible, we're going to look at John chapter 20. It is Easter Sunday, right?
Yeah, come on.
Good. I had a moment. No, I'm asking, seriously. I had a moment because I forgot what day it was. Anyway, it's been a big week. John chapter 20. This is where we find Mary Magdalene, right? In this moment in John chapter 20. Jesus has died on the cross. He's been put in the tomb. She's going to the tomb to prepare his body, to embalm his body, to do all of those rituals on the third day, right? And she thinks it's all over. The disciples have scattered and fled and run off, and they think it's all finished. Jesus was supposed to save Israel, rescue them, but he has died, and this is where we are at before Easter Sunday, right? This is where we find ourselves. And so John 20, it says, Mary, one of them. Mary stood weeping outside the tomb because she got there and Jesus' body was gone, right? And as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb and she saw 2 angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet, right? So she's got there, Jesus is not in the tomb, angels in the tomb. They said to her, "Woman," the Bible says woman. It's great. That's a weird translation there. "Why are you weeping?" And she said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." And having said this, she turned around. She saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. It was yesterday morning. We were at a cafe on the way to the park, because that's what you do when you're in Australia, right? And these people started walking down the road, and we looked at them, we're like, they look kind of familiar. And they looked at us and like, they look kind of familiar. And as they got closer, we realized that they used to live in Cambodia and they were teachers at Aya's school, and we hadn't seen them for 2 years since they'd left, right? And then they were looking at us like, hey, anyway, they're from Wollongong, right? But that's what, small world. And so we're staring at each other, but because I didn't expect it, because it was totally out of context for me, it took me so long to figure out who it was. I'm like, you know how it is. The same with us, because of course we're in the wrong country right now. They're like, that's not where you belong, get back. Anyway, this is what's happening in this story, right? Like, it's a little bit more extreme than oh, hey, where have you been? Oh, just dead. Thanks, guys. Nobody gets my jokes in Cambodia, so I'm going to enjoy it, okay? I'm going to make the most of it. They never translate well. Sarcasm is an Australian thing that doesn't carry through cross-culturally. She didn't know it was Jesus, right? And she's not expecting it to be Jesus because Jesus has died. And so she looks at this guy, and Jesus says to her, "Woman, why are you weeping, right? Why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" She thinks that he's the gardener, yeah? So she's like, "Hey, sir, if you've taken him somewhere, where did you take him, right? What have you done with Jesus? What is the gardener doing?" Anyway, she's distraught. She doesn't know what's going on. She's just thinking, maybe the gardener took him. Anyway, "If you have taken him, tell me where to go." And then Jesus calls to her, right? And this is what I want to get today, yeah? Jesus says to her, "Mary," yeah? "Mary." And she turns and she looks at him and she says, "Rabboni," which means teacher. She recognizes Jesus when Jesus calls her name, right? When Jesus calls her by name, she realizes who he is, yeah? And has this incredible moment with Jesus. And she's like, "Oh, you're not a gardener. It's you. Yeah, it's Jesus." And it happens when he calls her name, Mary. She realizes who it is, right? And Jesus says to her, "Don't cling to me," and we'll get to this later. "I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." The resurrection, Easter Sunday, it's universal. It's for every single person, right? It's for all of humanity. One of the key reasons that we do what we do is because we believe that, yeah? We believe that Jesus is for everyone, not just people in Wollongong or somewhere, but everyone, everywhere, right? That's why we do what we do. But as well as being universal, the resurrection is personal. It's for you. It's for me. It's for Mary, right? And we have all been in a place where Mary is, where we think, I don't know what's next. I feel like it is all over. I feel like I can't do anymore and I can't see a future. And it all changes when Jesus calls our name. Yeah? When Jesus comes to her and says, "Mary," and she's like, wow, it's Jesus. Yeah? And she has a revelation. And I think in this moment, she's like, her brain is exploding, right? Oh, I get it. He talked about the death and coming back and what it would really mean to have the kingdom of God. And like there's all this stuff exploding in her head at the mention of her name as she realizes who the resurrected Jesus is, right? And this is what's happening. And that's the same for us. When Jesus calls your name, when he calls my name, there's a transformation. There's this whole thing that goes on, right? There's a moment where we recognize Jesus and then we respond to his call. Yeah? We recognize him and we respond to his call. In John 10, it says this in verse 2. It says, "He who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice and he calls his own sheep by name." Yeah? And leads them out. This is talking about Jesus. It's talking about us. right? He calls his sheep by name. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice, right? Jesus calls us by name, and if we listen and we know his voice, we can hear it and we can respond, right? This is the incredible thing about Easter, right? It's not over. It is just beginning. It is just the start. And Jesus is calling us into his resurrection kingdom, yeah? Not, oh, yeah, it's some good ideas and he was a good teacher. Look, we live in a part of the world where 1% of people are Christians, right? So I have heard all sorts of things about who people think Jesus is. One young guy once at our language exchange asked me if Jesus was the one that came down the chimney and gave you presents at Christmas time. So this is where we're at, right? But God is inviting us to join in his kingdom, yeah? And inviting us to run to him. Yeah, he loves you. God loves you, and his invitation is to come into his arms. And this is an invitation that we can receive because of what Jesus did at Easter, because of what we remember at Easter time, right? Jesus didn't stay dead, but he was resurrected, and in that resurrection shows his power and his victory, right? Yeah? I'm going to show this picture. I think the guys have got it. When we were at the park taking the pictures, right? And Aya grabs me and she's hugging me. Our friend took a photo of it. And it's my favorite, I think, out of all the photos that we took that day, because it's a real moment, right? It's an honest moment. And Aya's there and she's crying. And I was thinking how this is like a super imperfect image of God with us, right? The Father's arms loving us, hugging us. But I can only comfort Aya. I can't heal her, right? I can tell her it's going to be okay. I can give her a hug, but God heals, yeah? And through Jesus, we have life, we have healing, we have fullness, and we have purpose, right? And so this is just this picture that's just this really, really imperfect idea, yeah, of what it means to be loved by God. But I want to encourage us in, I guess, the second half of this story, right? Because it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with, oh, Mary, oh, Jesus, yes. What does Jesus say to Mary straight away? He says to her, don't cling to me. That's what I was saying to Aya here. Like, it's super hot. Get off me. I'm sweating so much. It's always hot. Anyway, don't cling to me, he says, for I have not yet ascended, but go to my brothers, yeah? And tell them, right? And then she goes to them and she says, I have seen the Lord, right? This is our job, yeah? This is our mission, and this is what we're here to do. Don't cling to me, but go to my brothers, right? This is what Jesus says to Mary. Because Mary sees Jesus, he's alive again, he's there, he's not a gardener, he's ready. And she's like, yes, finally you're back, Jesus, everything's gonna be okay. Can I just hang out here with you, right? You're gonna bring your kingdom like you said because you're back. And he's like, you don't get it, I haven't ascended yet. It's a bigger picture, don't cling on to me, go and tell my brothers. And when Aya was hugging me in that moment, I'm not saying in a rude way, but I'm saying the same thing, hey? You're strong, you're brave, you can do this, you're gonna be okay, let's get back up again. You know, maybe I'm a bit of a tough dad, I don't know. But I'm always telling her to just, you know, stand up again and go again and try again, because we want to build resilience in our children, right? You know, you can do it, you can keep going. And so she settles down and we wipe off the blood and take some more photos, right? You know, we were there, we had a job to do. No, I think that was pretty much the end of the day. But, you know, that's what I'm saying, right? I'm saying do not cling to me, right? You know, because it's fine to have the cuddle. It's fine to have the moment. It's fantastic to have the moment where we realize who God is and that he loves us and that we can be in his presence, right? But then he says, do not cling to me. Go and tell my brothers. And I think that the revelation of Jesus calling our name must always lead to, I have seen the Lord, right? I'm going to go and tell people, I have seen the Lord. It's never enough to just sit at the feet of God, and that's a great place to be, and church is a great place to be, and I love church. But it's more than that, right? Where we need to say, hey, I'm going to go, and I'm going to tell, and I'm going to tell other people, and I'm going to go to my brothers, and I'm going to say, hey, I've seen Jesus, right? And he changed everything for me. Otherwise, we just focus inward. We never mature. We never grow up. We never turn into something that we're supposed to be. We get stuck clinging on to Jesus without realizing that he's got a job for us to do, right? So I think at Easter time, it's a great time to remember that we are saved, and that's personal. That's for you. It's for me. Jesus is calling you by name, right? But he is calling every name all over the world, right? He is calling your neighbors' names, your friends' names, your co-workers' names. He knows all of the Khmer names. I'm still learning the Khmer names, but he knows all of them, and he knows them perfectly, right? And he is calling their names, and so our job, I think, is to go and to tell others what we have seen. Go and tell others what we have experienced, right? Not sit there next to the tomb. Yes, Jesus is back. Everything will be okay now. Which, of course, it will be. It's great. He came to give life, right? But to share that transformation that we have experienced, to go and to tell others, right? Because Cambodia, Australia need Jesus followers who will go and share, not just stay and cling, right? You get it? You with me here on this? Jesus is calling your name, and he is calling the name of your friends and your co-workers and your family, right? And so my encouragement to us today, if it's all right, is that we would realize the love that God has for us and what the cross means, yeah? And what the resurrections means. But that we would not stay and cling, but we would go and tell, right? Does that make sense? Can I pray for you guys?